the view I always share with the parents coming in my office is this. Focus on three things: quality, quantity, and awareness. Let me explain why.
On this podcast, we talk about the best ways to get your child to get the homework done. Welcome to Speaking of Math Podcast, episode number 54 by Door to Math. This podcast is devoted to all things math education and how parents can be a positive factor in their kids' math learning. Math is the gateway to many professional careers as well as confidence and personal growth. Find more information at www.doortomath2.com or on social media at Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at Tucson Math Doc. So let's get on with the topic of the day. What does a landscaper have to do with math? Typically not much, but this morning I had a run-in with a landscaper. I underestimated the scope of the task and things didn't go well. The landscaper promised one thing and he showed up with something else, so we were stuck. And I was thinking, if a child who's not motivated perhaps shows up with one thing, what do you as a parent do with that?
Yeah, that's a pretty good question. So this landscaper, bless his heart, promised something and was not able to deliver. We didn't think it was a big deal to hold someone on their promise, but obviously, there's always two sides of the story. So when it comes to math, it's a tricky thing, because once a kid complains about the math and the difficulty, it's really hard to motivate something or someone to do something. A, they don't think it's important. B, it's hard, as in this morning with the landscaper, to keep his promise. And, it's hard for him. I sympathize that. So on our part, we shouldn't have started the collaboration with the landscaper to begin with. Anyway, long story short, come back to the math. This might be counterintuitive. I always say when the parents come to my office, say, how do I motivate my kids to study math? I always tell them don't. And here's the reason. Motivation comes from within. We can force them for so long. We can coax them for so long. We can even bribe them for so long. But at the end of the day, I believe we as a parent, the more I can help parents to give them tools to manage math education, the better long-term goal is how it turns out.
So, are you saying that you should not force your kids to do math?
Well, it's not realistic that you don't do math, period, right? So, the view I always share with the parents coming in my office is this. Focus on three things: quality, quantity, and awareness. Let me explain why. That's not a motivation. I always tell the parents, don't try to motivate your kids, because that's their job, right? But if you give kids tools to gauge where they are, quantity, quality, and awareness, specifically this is what I mean. If you have tools to help them gauge where they are, chances are their innate pride, aka their own motivation, will kick in, right? So when a child, if the quality of the homework is reduced and quantity, as in they don't want to do the homework, let's say they only do half the homework, and the half they do, it's really not of the quality. Then the third thing I tell parents is, do you have tools, ways to have your children aware that both quality and quantity is going downhill, right? If the awareness is over there, there are things you can do. If the awareness is not there, then forget about math altogether, because there's not enough tools to move the momentum forward.
So you're putting their skills of completing projects ahead of math this way?
Way ahead of that, because I think at end of the 18-year job, when our kids ready to fly to college on their own, math or no math, it's important, but end of the day though, the more tools they can engage and bring their own work forward, keep the momentum, I believe in the end serve the kids much better.
Okay, let me see if I can boil this down. At one level, if your child's not doing something you want them to do, you force them to do it, just physically or verbally force them to do, so that's one level. Then the next level is motivation. That you give them a motivational speech and see if that works. And what you're saying is that there's a level beyond that, and that's called just make them aware and let them decide. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. Not all parents buy in what I say at work, and that's okay. What I always say, to me, it's important I help parents to have more tools so they can pass on to the kids to maintain their own momentum. My belief is always, end of the day, we can't be with our kids and guide them for the rest of our lives. So the more tools we can pass it on to them, the better we can serve our kids.
Okay, I'm on board with you. What you said about them going off to college and me not being there, that really worked for me. So say I want to go with awareness, and you put quality and quantity before the awareness. What are the steps here?
Okay, so I'll give you one concrete example. Yesterday, I have a child come in, and she didn't do what she promised, right? She had 5 days to complete the homework, and we planned at which day she's going to do what. The quality wasn't there, and the quantity was not there either. So when she came in, the first thing she said is, "I know I screwed up." Now that to me is worth all the math I could possibly pass on to her, because she is aware she screwed up. She took a responsibility for that. And then what we did is structure the whole lesson. It was not to say, "How could you," right? Because she already know that. So we took a look at what's on her coming week. Well, like what's so heavy and stressful for her. There's classes, English classes, for example, French class she was taking. There was some history classes she's taking. So we made a list of the entire what's on her plate that's heavy for her, right? And then I asked her, I said, in a normal week, how long do you think you have per day wise budgeted for the math, for example? Because obviously it's important subject for her. She says, "Oh, I think I can budget 2.5 hours." Now I know that based on the experience and how hard she's been working, I know with the quality and quantity, there's no way she had 2.5 hours focused attention on the math. Now, for me to tell her that, it's not going to help her grow as much as if she can come up to their own conclusion, which she did it, by the way, in the end. So we actually sat down to say, okay, 24 hours, what are you doing with the 24 hours on average? So long story short, near the end, she said, "You know what? I think I can really only commit 20 minutes. That was my estimate." So for her to get that 20 minutes was what she actually has versus 2.5 hours she thinks she has. That's a huge step for her, right? With the 20 minutes, then the conversation is like, well, what do you think you can commit in that 20 minutes? Now it's nowhere near what you thought, like 140 minutes, right? She said, "How about we do 2 problems, this and this?" So she went in there saying, okay, if I can only concentrate 20 minutes, what is it I can realistically commit to? Again, that's where the quality and quantity comes in, right? So with the awareness, she was able to bring her own quality and quantity up.
All right, so let me see if I can unwrap this. So those 20 minutes doesn't seem like much, but you need both ingredients, quality and quantity, in those 20 minutes. If you don't have one or both of those ingredients, the time doesn't count.
No, I was actually, I would argue, thinking you have 2.5 hours and versus thinking you are aware you only have 20 minutes to do some quality work, I would any day prefer the 20 minutes, because that's awareness, number one, and number two, once you have a focused mind, the end results, the momentum, maybe that's a better word, the momentum will not come from what you thought 2.5 hours. They'll actually bring it down, because you don't have 2.5 hours, and that guilt, negative talk actually will set the momentum way back. That 20 minutes focused work will actually grow the child.
Okay, so let's get the order of this right. So the awareness comes first. Once you're aware of what it takes to really do deliberate concentrating of work, then you can look at the quality and the quantity, and then you can decide how much time you really have in a week.
Yeah, I think for my students in this particular case, having her own awareness and then work backward. So she is pretty much in charge of her own quality and quantity, how much work she thinks she can get done with focused work, and that knowing she only have 20 minutes versus what she thought it was 2.5 hours is where the momentum comes in.
So what I hear you saying, let's take the extreme examples. It's much more important to you that if a student is aware and only has 1 minute a week for quality and quantity versus someone who's not as aware and spends 8 hours a day but not necessarily doing quantity and quality work.
Yeah, I mean, it's just another way to say, look, if you're doing busy work and if you as a parent spending and trying to bargain and you got that 2.5 hour, but your kid is not going to use it, it's no use. In the end, you got frustrated, the kid is not building and math is not improving. It's lose-lose, like everybody, 3 people lose in there.
All right, so what I'm hearing is when there is awareness, it's a win-win that the parent has expectations and the child has expectations and they're aligned together.
And have the buy-in from the kid, I believe, is so important, because once they know they have 20 minutes and they want to go move forward, their mind was going to have a different conversation than, oh, my parents making me study for 2.5 hours. I mean, you can see the quality is never going to be there.
All right, let's summarize. So when there's an issue of a child not doing what they promised, or anyone that you're working with not doing what you think they promised, there's several levels of getting the work done. So one is you can force that person to do it. A level I would say that's above that is to motivate a person to do it. And a level that we talked about before is just to make them aware of what's done and what's not done and let them decide. And we talked about what it takes to make someone aware, and then after the awareness, they can figure out the quality and the quantity they can put in for this project. All right, and on that note, until next time.
Happy parenting.